Hey, pretty people. So, this is a dedication to Niko House. I have often credited Marianne Williamson as the person in the public eye who educated me the most about politics, and admittedly, she was quite central. But also, I learned a lot from Niko House about kind of the nuts and bolts of politics and also about the mainstream narrative in American media, which is very skewed toward uh, a certain bias. Well, it's basically us versus them kind of bias. Um, and, for instance, the narrative around Hillary Clinton's campaign about Russia and the interference, which was somewhat designed to foster anti Russian sentiments. Um, and also, one of the things that I really appreciated about Nico House was his ability to delve into public record and go through all the nuts and bolts. I'm not sure I still fully understand what corporate PAC money, like how it works, because there's supposed to be rules in place that prevent corporations from donating directly to candidates, right? But then there's this way that they create a committee so that it's kind of like it's supposed to look like individual donations, but it's actually the corporation and it's all bundled together. Um, anyway, so as a matter of public record, you can see which corporations have donated to which candidates, and that I do think that that is quite indicative of what constitutes a progressive candidate in any political race. Because you want a candidate who represents the will of the people as individuals rather than the will of the corporate machines, which have a tendency to just advocate for profit for their product. So, anyway, I remember a lot about Nico House. One of the things, before I had discovered Marianne Williamson, I was following Tulsi Gabbard. People have corrected me and saying it's Gabbard, but actually, technically, it is Gabbard. But she never bothers to correct people because it's not a big deal to her. Anyway, I had followed her a lot because I saw her on Trevor Noah, and she was talking about peace, and I thought it was a wonderful thing that this veteran of someone who had been in Afghanistan and I think Iraq also was so vociferously speaking out against the regime change wars, um, especially when there have been a number of them which were giant whoopsies. And basically, I mean, like, I can't even watch a movie, a dramatization of the war in the Vietnam War, although my mother did subject me to a lot of them, but I think I had my eyes closed the whole time because it just upsets me so much, especially as someone who has a lot of Vietnamese friends who I'm incredibly fond of, and I mean, I don't know, it's there's like a kind of racial element in there as well because I generally fancy them. Anyway, horribly sidetracked. Yes, so that was how I discovered Nico House's channel was because he seemed to be the only progressive channel that was in favor of Tulsi Gabbard and you know was noting because I had thought there's something very odd about the fact that the polls are not mentioning her. Um, and then I began to notice that all the candidates who had committed to not take corporate PAC money were coincidentally also ignored by the mainstream media. And I think that I do think that there is a connection there. I think that the mainstream media, because it is a corporate entity itself, especially MSNBC, CNN, and Fox News, um, I think that they kind of respect and maybe have some kind of a corporate, I don't know if they have interests in certain like pharmaceutical companies, and then those are also donating to campaigns. So there's this whole kind of extended family going on. I think, yeah, actually, I'm pretty sure that is the case. Um, so yeah, so I think that their ignoring of the people's candidates is not an accident, and uh, and Nico House was the person who could sort of point to it on paper and show you the numbers. And my brain is really useless with numbers, but I could follow what he was saying enough to get the point. And uh, and that was hugely enlightening for me. And he was the channel that pretty much stayed very, very loyal to Tulsi's campaign. He covered a little bit of Bernie Sanders, mostly kind of to point out shortcomings, like where um, Bernie Sanders and also Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez were not meeting their progressive ideals as they had laid them out, um, especially in reference to the OFF Act, which was something that Tulsi Gabbard had advocated for and did not get passed in the Senate. But it was more kind of it was to get off fossil fuels, and it was kind of more beneficial than the Green New Deal as Niko had researched it. Anyway, um, and then as I was watching Niko House, and I had simultaneously been following Marianne Williamson and her campaign, and I noticed, oh, she's now taking corporate PAC money also, and so I started commenting on his videos. And what's interesting is that a lot of the progressive news channels that you will see on YouTube, like Kyle Kulinski or David Pakman, as progressive as he is, even Kim Iverson, they're not people who will go into the comments and interact on their videos. Niko will go there. Niko will, if you say something on his channel that he either agrees with or disagrees with, he will absolutely be right there to like your comment and give you his perspective and ask questions and answer questions. And so when I mentioned Marianne Williamson a few times, he was right there to respond. And um, and that was really awesome. And also, he covered the first debates in 2019. Um, I think the ones that were in Miami, and uh, and he said that Marianne Williamson won the debates, which surprised and impressed me because that was also my feeling. Because I think the people that thought that she didn't do well in the first debates were people who were expecting the debates to be conducted in a dignified and mature manner. Where have you been? Which country do you think you're living in? Like this is this is oh my God. I mean the CNN has not been mature for 20 or 30 years. And I don't know why you would think it would be, honestly. So then also the fact that there is no way that CNN did not see Marianne Williamson coming, given that she was calling out the very corporate entities that fund a lot of networks. So there's absolutely no way that they did not see her coming and not have a plan in place to shut this woman up because she has incredible viral potential in the way that she speaks. And also, she is anti corporate establishment. And so Niko has, and I found that other progressive channels did not really want to go there with the first debates. They didn't really want to say too much about Marianne Williamson. And Niko House came right out and said she won the debates. She was never, luckily for her, she, as far as Niko House goes, she was never on the debate the same night as Tulsi Gabbard. Otherwise, I think, I don't know if she would have measured up in the same way because Niko was very, very um, staunch supporter of Tulsi Gabbard, and I think I liked her, but I favored Marianne Williamson more, mostly because, okay, this is the reason why. Tulsi Gabbard, first of all, just for a completely superficial reason, the way she speaks is very Canadian. It's very measured. She seems like an introvert when she's on stage, whereas I thought that Marianne Williamson was really bombastic in a very American way, in a very attention grabbing way, very extroverted, very engaging, ready to engage with audience members. Um, and also very kind of rabble rousing. Whereas I find that Tulsi is not like that, and I think that the running for the American presidency kind of requires a certain amount of unabashed ego, actually. Now, so that I just thought that the Marianne Williamson had more of a potential to go further in the states. Now, I'm saying that as a Canadian, so I don't know all the Americans there are and what their demeanor is like and what they respond to necessarily. But this is just it was a superficial thing judgment that I made. The other reason was that um, more from a law of attraction perspective, I was looking at the idea of ending wars and promoting peace. And what I noticed was that Tulsi Gabbard's rhetoric was very dedicated to anti-war, but then when it would come to what she wanted to do instead, she would just say like do more things at home in the US, but that was very vague. I think that in order to actualize peace, we actually have to be able to describe it in some kind of detailed terms to be able to envision it and to imagine it, and then also use that vision to create practical policies that facilitate peace. And what I heard Marianne Williamson talking about was the study that she had made of the factors that are statistically proven to promote peace. And that impressed me more than just ending the regime change wars, which I also think is equally as important. Um, anyway, basically, I wanted to, yes, I'm making this video to appreciate Niko House, who, as much as Marianne Williamson taught me about politics, I think he actually taught me more just in terms of looking at all of the nuts and bolts. And he has a very critical mind, but not a negatively critical mind. He's not one of these people who just calls stuff out of sheer kind of like left wing rage all the time. He's actually a very loving guy. And the fact that he would descend into his own comments section to engage with people, including me, was very touching. And and I mean, the guy has a fierce look as well. Like as far as you know, his sense of style and everything is absolutely, I think, pretty unmatched, really. Um, so, especially, you know, no offense to my compatriot, David Dole, but I mean, his look is like so Canadiana. I mean, one of my criticisms of Canada is the almost religious adherence to the notion that men should wear plaid, and I think it. I actually think that symbolism has an effect on the subconscious mind, and I think that Canadian men are extremely um, socially conservative, is how I would put it. Anyway, so yes, Niko House. Um, Yeah, I think he's a very loving guy, and I think that he's a very genuine guy. And I had almost canceled RBN until they had him on 2 times to talk about stuff, and I was like, Niko House, completely fangirling, as they say. So I watched the RBN episodes that had him on, and he is wonderful and very, very well researched on topics, especially about Ukraine and Russia. So if you want to learn about Ukraine and Russia, I definitely recommend that you check out what Niko House is saying about it. And yeah, I think that's it for now. Anyway, lots of love to you all, and lots of love to Niko House.